proud of our young people in the classroom, in the community, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
What an entrance. What a great Scoop World Order we have in store for you guys today. I have the GOAT, the great Jim Tressel is with me today. I appreciate you guys as always. I'm going to not waste any time getting to him. But as always, we are thankful and grateful for you guys. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys have been doing. Our channel is at a new all-time high in subscribers. So thank you guys. Spread the word about it. Like the content. For the comment of the day, what was your favorite moment of Jim Tressel's tenure as the Ohio State football coach? I know 99% of you are going to say beating the Miami Hurricanes, but if anyone wants to get a little different than that, I'll go to that. We're going to watch a little bit of the 06 Michigan game while we talk. But without further ado, bringing in my guy, Coach Tress. Tress, how are you today?
I'm well, Bart. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to have you here. You are a guy that was a big game legend at Ohio State. You coached in some of the biggest games in school history, and you won most of them. So I just love your input on this. I'm going to just have the film roll in the background while we're talking. But getting ready for Notre Dame, it's a unique challenge for Ryan Day. It's a first-year head coach in Marcus Freeman. What was your mentality getting ready for that early season game? We played Texas when they were, unbelievable the year they won the national title. We played them again the next year. What's your mentality through training camp with the team, and how do you get a team focused for a game like that?
Well, there's a natural emotional advantage during preseason when you have a game like that staring at you right at the beginning. I think preparing for it, the thing that you're most curious about is who you are. You can study all you want about them. Sometimes they have new coaches. Sometimes they have new starters, key new people. Notre Dame, in this case, has a new head coach and a new quarterback, new defensive coordinator. But really what's most important, I always felt, is to figure out who we were and to see what it was we could learn about ourselves and also make sure we understood that regardless of how that comes out, we've got a long road to go and a lot of goals out ahead of us. But sometimes you have to worry about it being a little bit overhyped, because it's so early and your team is such an unknown in September.
Yeah, I completely agree. Something I want to ask you, in your prep in the offseason, getting ready, to study a team like Texas in 05 or Notre Dame this year, how much when you're studying, say, Notre Dame's defense, and obviously Marcus was the coordinator last year. He's been promoted to head coach. Al Golden is now the defensive coordinator. I'm sure Marcus will have, his hand in the defense the way Luke Fickell did at Cincinnati. How much film do you study of where Al Golden came from versus straight what Marcus Freeman ran last year?
Oh, I think you have to do both because everyone has their own personality. Everyone has their own go-to things. You can feel when something big is needed, what they really believe in. So I think that that's a little bit of the uncertainty of it, is that you're not sure which personality the team will have that particular week. And really, as the season goes on, this year, game one, it might be more of Marcus's personality as a defensive signal caller. But as Al, grows and learns and starts integrating some of the things he believes in, maybe later in the year, you'll have to be even more aware. But you know how it is getting ready for a game. You have nothing but time, especially when the schedule is known way in advance. And I think anytime you're coming off a tough end of the season, I know every time I've talked to Ryan, all he wants to talk about is getting that taste out of his mouth in regards to, the way the regular season finished. And this game to him is, he is so excited. It's so much fun just to watch, his eyes light up when he thinks about the opportunity, to play against a top 5 team in his own stadium with just wanting to unleash a little bit of that frustration.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's one of those things where you you look back and you see kind of what's been going on with the program. There's been a lot of consternation since the Michigan game, since the Utah game. If you're Notre Dame, you have to run the ball, correct? I mean, that's the thing that I keep saying is like, if I'm a coach and I'm going into this game and I see, the amount of yards that Oregon accumulated along with Michigan, along with Utah on the ground, plus the fact that if you run the ball, you can keep CJ Stroud off the field. You would think going into it, that would be the game plan. Or am I completely off base with that?
Oh, no, I think there's no question. Notre Dame probably wants to make it as few possession game as they can because C.J. Stroud and Nick Jigba and Trayvon and that big O line, they're special. I mean they're a darn good bunch, and you want to give them as few possessions with as poor a field position as you possibly can. So there's no doubt it would be a great advantage for both teams if they can run the ball, because if Ohio State is successful running and all of a sudden Notre Dame's got to put an extra hat in the box, there's some people going to be in one-on-ones, and CJ Stroud is smart and he's a veteran. And so it's what I believe, Bart. I believe that the team that can run the ball has got a distinct advantage. The team that could stop the run has got an advantage on the other side.
All right, so I have a question because there's been a lot of consternation about the run defense last year and the defense in general last year. And on the flip, on offense, despite being number one in total offense, one of the things that people were concerned about was converting in short yardage. To you, is there a correlation between how frequently we pass? And this isn't a criticism of what we do because we're fantastic at throwing the ball, but is there a correlation between us not being able to run the ball in the interior for the most part and not being able to stop the run? And I'm just saying this because in 07, my senior year, we had Todd, first year quarterback, protect him. We had Beanie, who's a first round running back. We ran the ball a lot, and which means in practice we're running the ball, and our defense was really good, and they finished number one in the nation versus the run. And I think they were number one in total defense as well. Is there a correlation between having a high flying attack and maybe not being as good at fitting against the run?
Well, I think it's always an advantage who you compete against in practice. And that's why Ohio State right now, with I think a stacked roster of, top to bottom, just talented people. And then it's a decision of where do you invest your time. And, I don't really know where people invest their time unless I'm at practice. It's a hard thing. These players are so big and so fast, and the force at which they hit each other. As you knew when you went to the NFL, the tempo and the amount of hitting in practice was a little bit less because those bodies were so big, and you only had 53 of them in your case. But there are some key people. In fact, the night we were at the birthday party for Ohio Stadium, they had just scrimmaged, and I only asked Ryan one initial question, and that was, did you stay healthy? Because that's really what you always thought about during scrimmages, where it was, were you going to leave the scrimmage healthy? And then were you going to have had a chance to practice what it is you really need to have in those live reps? And so it's, I think Ohio State will run the ball better than most people think they will. And I think they'll play better run defense than most people think they will. Why? Because you get what you emphasize. And I know the entire off season, the discussion was we've got to play better against the run on defense. And those players heard that every single day. And so I have no concern at all. I think they're going to play the run very well. And then when they play the run well with those talented rushers they have, I think they could put a lot of pressure on a new quarterback.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that's kind of not stated nearly enough is how young the team was last year. It reminds me of a more talented, better version of our 2004 team that went 8-4, extremely young. And, we lost some seniors there, Nugent, Simon Frazier. But, in 05, we were all back. And then it was kind of time to pay back Iowa and pay back some of the teams that had beaten us, when we were younger, that they were veteran the year before. And I think that's going to make a big difference, especially defensively, that all those guys are a year older. And, there's nothing that motivates you more than a Michigan loss. It was like when we lost in 03, like that entire offseason was Michigan, Michigan, Michigan. And, there's no greater motivator than everybody reminding you of that game. Going into a training camp, do you base the amount of contact and the amount of scrimmaging, ones versus one stuff, based on how veteran your team is, how young your team is? And do you adjust that as the camp goes on? I assume you would if there was a rash of injuries in a certain position. But how did you get ready for a training camp based on your roster that you had returning?
You especially do that in the spring. If you're a veteran group coming back in the spring, uh, the last thing you want to do is have your veteran guys overhit and get banged up, and then the same thing goes forward to preseason, and it's the magic sauce that you never know if you're right. I don't care if you're in the NFL right now with 3 preseason games trying to decide who plays how much, or if you're a great team like Ohio State, or even Notre Dame during their preseason. They had the same decisions to make. Is how much are we going to bang? Uh, how we can't afford certain depth at certain positions, so we're going to have to be careful with what we do, and that's always everyone talks about how a team's going to be in the course of a year based on how many people are coming back and so forth. I think as important or more important is what is the ongoing health of your team. Are they healthy enough to get better in the spring? Are they healthy enough to get better in preseason? I remember Anthony Gonzalez told me one time when he missed a week or two of practice, and he said, "You know what? I didn't realize how important practice was until I missed it, and then I didn't have, the sharpness that I had a month ago." And so that ability to stay healthy, which comes down to how much risk do you take. That's always a hard one, and if you're fortunate, sometimes a great season. If you think about the 02 team, we were very healthy coming into the year. We really played well through about 3 games, and all of a sudden we got some injuries, and Maurice was out a good bit, and we had some guys banged up, and so we weren't quite as good in the middle. But the good news was, by the time we played Miami, we were full speed, and everyone was ready to go. But we had to decide during that 43 days before the Miami game, well, how much hitting do we do there? I know when we used to be in a lot of playoff games here at Youngstown State, and we'd go year after year playing 15 games, we would get to the point where we would probably only put the pads on 1 day a week, and thump a little bit 1 day a week. But the big thing is staying sharp, staying healthy, staying rested, and it's so hard to tell because a lot of the injuries, there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's just freak. And there's other ones that you say to yourself, I wonder if we overran them, or if we, that type of thing. And I used to base a lot of the course of the season based upon how tired I felt. Because I thought, if this old guy is physically not feeling pepper, just ready to go, I can't imagine the guys have been banging into each other and sprinting and running and jumping and hitting. And so if there was ever a time where I started feeling a little leg weary, or just a little slow, I wanted to make sure that we pulled back a little bit.
Yeah, that's
That's a
fascinating point.
fascinating point.
Excuse me, I'm getting some feedback. Let me turn that down. But Coach, I'm real curious as to when you would do that. Was there ever a time when you wish you wouldn't have pulled back, or it was too much, or you wish you would have pushed the team harder, or is that something that never occurred to you?
Well, I think I'm sure were times when I thought, maybe we're not as mature as I thought we were in terms of, really understanding, uh, what the task at hand is, what the challenge ahead of us is, that type of thing. But I think those are more mental things, honestly, than physical. The game is going to be won on Saturday night mentally. You know, if that hunger and that passion to be precise and to just go on all cylinders can continue for the Buckeyes, Notre Dame's going to have a hard time. If there's ever a moment where we relax and give them an opportunity, uh, who knows what can happen? Because you can just relax one time and all of a sudden there's a turnover, or there's a missed blocking call, and there's a blindside sack, or you name it, or missed coverage, or because you lost that edge. So the game really will be determined mentally. What will Notre Dame think coming in? Uh, New coaching staff, new quarterback, new environment. Um, they've been watching the film. They know how good the Buckeyes are, and so what's their mental status going to be? And that, to me, that's the fun. When there's so many people involved in an activity like football, it's the mental part of it. How many of your people are really zoned in? If it's a tennis match, it's just, well, is that person mentally ready? But you've got to have 40, 50, 60 people plus dozen coaches and everyone glued in, especially when you're playing against good competition.
Absolutely. Well, recruiting is a huge part, obviously, of these big game weekends, especially a game like Notre Dame that's been circled for over a year now. I mean, it's been on the schedule for probably 10 years, but how did you manage the giant recruiting weekends when you had a marquee game? Like, I imagine that the '05 Texas game was a huge recruiting weekend. Like, how do you manage that? Especially the ones that are, they're not, like obviously Michigan's always a big one. The 1-2 game was a massive weekend, but you don't realize that you're going to be 1-2 at the end of the season. So you don't have as much planning as you do for that Texas game. How do you manage, keeping your mind sharp and on the task at hand, which is winning the game, the most important thing, and also spending time with some 5-star kids that are from out of state that you might not see again before signing day?
I think, like any situation, eliminating the distractions, keeping the total emotional effort toward the task at hand is the key. And it's harder when you're the home team, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because you've got your own tickets. Is grandma coming, or is it my aunt coming, or whose turn? Oh my gosh, there's a fight over my 4 tickets or whatever, and there's the recruits, and then there's the hoopla that goes around it, and whereas when you're the visiting team, you're excited, you come, you get to soak up the atmosphere, and you didn't have any of the headaches that go along with it. You didn't have to worry about game day in your backyard and be all fired up about that. And so, but the recruiting part of it, I think, is not only the people that get to enjoy the actual event, because that's special, but there's people all over the world watching on TV. And there's some guys that are in eighth grade, that are going to see that game, and how you start thinking early on in life about,
Yeah.
wow, wouldn't it be cool to be in an atmosphere like that, or be wearing those colors, or that type of thing. So the upside is incredible, um, but the distractions are real, and having those discussions about, hey, get your tickets signed up by Monday for or Tuesday, or I forget what the rule was. Get your mind focused on such and such. The coaches, get your recruiting itinerary set. Help them understand that they're going to be hosted by a lot of people who don't have to do anything during the game. Uh, and
Mhm.
because the people that have something to do during the game, uh, they have a job to do.
Yeah. How important is the mental aspect of this week? It's Wednesday, so this is your second padded practice in all likelihood, and just again, you mentioned the distractions, the parents coming to town, the ticket situations. How important is it for the staff and the coaches and the captains and leaders to keep these guys locked in and focused on the game? Because it is an absolute circus. The circus is already kind of in town with game day and all that. But how important is the mental side going forward from Wednesday to when we kick off on Saturday?
Oh, well, the mental side uh, is what it's all about, and it happened way before Wednesday.
Hmm.
Wednesday on forward, you have to make sure you can maintain it because everyone was excited this was on the schedule. After we didn't win the Big Ten, which was, unusual, the disappointment of that, immediately the focus went on game one. And so the focus was there. Now, don't lose the focus on the last 2 days leading up to the game. And the other thing is don't be ready on Wednesday and not ready on Saturday. Sometimes you can get hyped up too early. I mean,
Yeah.
especially an emotional guy like you're probably out of your mind on Wednesday and Thursday. And could you bring it with the same mental focus and passion and enthusiasm on Saturday? And so that's that mental part. I think you can't increase your mental level starting Wednesday, but you can lose it because I know you have it.
Mhm.
Anyone that gets a chance to play in this game has got it. I mean, they're ready to go.
Did you, with the advent of the big noon kickoff, there are actually more marquee games at noon than there's ever been. Did you have a preferred game slot time between noon, 3:30, and 8 o'clock kickoff? Was there one that you liked? Was there one that you hated? Did it matter? Personally, I love noon games just because I like to get up and go. I don't like to sit around, the Blackwell all day. But was there a time that you preferred when you were coaching in these big games?
At 1 o'clock. At noon was a little bit. I worried a little bit about getting the guys rolling,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when we were out in the Central Time Zone. Remember, those would really be 11 o'clock games, if you
Oh yeah.
recall.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and so, but I like the traditional 1 o'clock game. And I think didn't we play Michigan once or twice at 1 o'clock over the course of time?
I I'm not sure over the course of time. I know that obviously the 1-2 game was a 3:30.
Right?
But I mean, I think the ones that when I played, we were always noon, which I love
Yeah.
because you're done at 3:30 and you get to go have dinner with your folks and relax and go hang out with your buddies afterwards. And again, there's nothing more miserable than sitting around the hotel all day because then you just have more meetings, more walkthroughs. Like you have your 8,000 walkthroughs that you have to do on Saturday, and and the hardest part for a night game, I always tell people, is it's like, when you're a player, you get like a 3 hour break in the middle of the day. And it's like, you got to balance, like, do I take a nap? Do I not take a nap? Am I going to feel groggy? It's not that big of a deal, but it's just like, when there's a noon game, there's nothing. You're up and you're rocking and game's done and
And it's
life's
worse
good.
away from home. It's because you're
Mhm.
stuck in one hotel room. You don't know anything, so it'll be harder for Notre Dame playing at night than with wait in a foreign
Mhm.
place. Um, and I always thought it was really difficult away from home if it was a later game and you sat there and looked out the window and the weather was horrible.
Oh
You
yeah.
know that mentally, that got you. And but no, my order would be I'd like 1 o'clock games first, noon, then 3:30, then evening.
So you like night games the least, because I'm right
Right,
there
but
with you.
I'll
What
say
what?
this: they,
Good.
they give you a lot of exposure, and they are
Mm-hmm.
exciting when you're playing them. That's why the 3:30 is kind of nice because you feel like the second half of it's night, and
Mm-hmm.
but it's not midnight. You know,
Yeah. I agree. Well, we have to talk about the 20-year anniversary of the 2002 team, one of the most legendary teams in college football history. A team that I was fortunate enough to go to a lot of the games, even the Kent State game. I was there because I was wanted to be a Buckeye and I was a recruit, so I had free tickets. Talk a little bit about that team. Obviously, they're coming off a 7-5 year in 2001. I'm not sure after that year, many people were picking you guys to win the national championship. So, talk a little bit about the genesis of that team and how it came to be after a season that was, frankly, I'm sure, a disappointment to you with 5 losses, and then it turns into the most magical season in Ohio State history.
yeah, I think that was one of those special teams for the reason that it was such a coming together of a lot of different directions. Uh, we had those seniors had been through 3 rough years: 6-6, 8-4, 5-7-5. That's not why they came to Ohio State. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the new people that were in. The Chris Gambles, the Dustin Fox, Nugie, Simon. That group. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
was 7-5, so that's not why that came to Ohio State. So most of the returning people had decided they'd suffered enough. Then you put the influx of the O2 freshmen with Maurice coming in early, and obviously he was a difference maker, and uh, as much in practice as anywhere else. Everyone remembers what he did in the game. I'm going to tell you, he made our practices pretty special, and that entire group, AJ and Robbie Sims and Mangold and Roy and Santonio and gosh, Kudla and DeAndrea, and I mean we had a group. I'll probably get yelled at because I don't remember all of them if someone's watching your podcast, but
Pitcock, TJ, yeah, there's a lot of them.
TJ Pitcock. I mean, shoot, there's 25 of them,
Yeah.
and they made practice so competitive because they came to play. You know, they weren't interested in not playing, and so they competed every day. So you could just see the level raised of our preparation. And then you kind of mix in as a bonus. We studied that 1942 national championship team, and a lot of those guys were still alive, and they came and spent time with us in preseason camp. And because our guys kept talking about, you know, Donnie, Nicky, and Mike Doss, if they said it once, they said it 400 times. We're going to be national champions, and you know, Craig Krenzel refuses to lose, you know, and so they kept talking about that, and I said, well, shoot, I wonder if they really understand what that means. And so that's why we brought that 42 team in. And here were some guys that won the national championship. I think 36 out of 43 or some crazy number. I don't know exactly. Enlisted to go to war right after their national champions. Then after their warriors, which I think we lost one or two of them in the war, then they went on for magnificent careers in their second chapter of their life. Some great football players, you know, Bill Willis, Dante Lavelli, and people like that, but also doctors, lawyers, coaches, you know. And so what they brought us, I thought, was our guys were willing to hear about that because they had been hanging around mediocrity. And here, war heroes, American heroes who won national championship and were also highly successful professionals, and they're 80 years old or whatever they were, and they still got the look in their eye like they could play. It was, I think, that added a lot of mixture to the whole, and then I think the fact that we had a lot of battles that season. I mean, we were by the end of the season, we were a battle-tested group. I mean, we had some near misses and some tough ones, and at the end of the year, we were healthy, you know, and that's really critical. And I remember those bowl practices for the Miami, you know, Troy Smith playing Willis McGahee, Santonio out there playing Andre Johnson, and Roy Hall playing Andre Johnson, and you know, on and on and on. O line, you know, banging against our guys, and it was a physical preparation because we had 43 days. We just felt like we could not, you know, keep playing the game. And so we had a great coaching staff, Coach D'Antonio's defense with Mel and Snides and Haycock and those guys, and Coach Bowles and Coach Daniels and Timmy Spencer and, you know, Bill Conley, and those guys did a great job. And we were just talking the other day that we're so excited about getting the guys back together. There's over 70 guys coming back, which is amazing. And a lot of coaches, but you know, there's going to be 5 people that were really important that won't be back. And that's Ivan and Shane, Will Smith, Coach Daniels, Coach Tucker. Those 5 guys were
and Mike Kudla too.
Oh, Cooge too. Yeah, we got 6. Yeah, gosh. Oh, how could I forget Cooge? Man,
Yeah.
you know. So, you know, it's you know, it will be bittersweet in its own way. But as we mentioned the other day, those guys will be able to celebrate in spirit with us. And but it was a special group for sure, with a special set of circumstances.
Yeah, talk a little bit about what Will Smith meant to the program. He was a guy that I learned a ton from as a guy who'd never played offensive line before. I was a tight end in high school, and I played left tackle against him every day in scout team. And obviously he destroyed me every day, but he was a guy that really taught me how to play tackle and would kind of coach me up after he'd kill me, which was great. And I kind of never forgot him for that. I always loved Will when he would come back and visit when he was with New Orleans, and he was our honorary captain when we played LSU. Walked off the coin toss when I was a captain with Will, like locked in arms. And tell the viewers a little bit about Will Smith, why he was such a special player.
Well, you'd never know from a personality standpoint, his public personality. Now, once he got on the field, I mean, it was scary. In fact, I really felt that was the one thing Miami had no idea of, was the likes of Will Smith and Darian Scott and Timmy Anderson, and Simon was in there some, and I don't think they had played against guys like that. Will was just one of those special guys, nonstop, needed no, he didn't need any pat on the back or anything. He was self-motivated. He was, I knew when he decided to come back for his senior year, the year after '02, when he said, "Hey, my grandmother made me promise to get my degree, and I'm staying to get my degree." I knew that he had that selflessness, that he wasn't sitting there thinking, "Well, I made my mark in the championship game. Everyone in the country knows me. I'm going to be in the first round." And if he would have gone, I would have said, "Good luck." I mean, because he would have been highly successful, and I wouldn't have blamed him one bit. But it tells you what kind of person he is. And then the other one that tells me, and you were there for this one, was in '03 when we lost to Michigan, and we were in our first team meeting getting ready for the bowl game against Kansas State. Well, Kansas State wasn't a flashy opponent. It wasn't like you were playing Texas or USC or LSU or Florida or Miami or something. But they were darn good. They were Big 12 champions. And I remember him coming into that first team meeting, and he said, "Hey, I am not leaving Ohio State with 2 straight losses. So if any of you don't practice that way, you're going to have to deal with me." I thought, whew. I mean, nobody else needed to say a thing. Then they just peek over at Craig Krenzel, who was the same guy, didn't always say it that way, but everyone in the room knew he wasn't interested in losing. I mean, he hadn't lost much, as a quarterback, and he wasn't about to go lose a second time. And so, but Will, heck, just watch what he did in the NFL, and now it sounds like we have a chance for his son to become a Buckeye.
Yeah, he's locked in, committed, and I'm really excited about him, Coach. You as we wrap this thing up, I got to be cognizant of your time. I got about 2 minutes. In '05, we're getting ready for Notre Dame. What was your mindset going into that Notre Dame game with our team, AJ, Bobby, Mangold, their last game versus Brady Quinn? What was your mentality going to that Notre Dame, and what did it feel like to beat the University of Notre Dame in such a huge heralded bowl game?
We had really gotten pretty good by the end of '05. We had that tough loss to Texas, who obviously proved they were pretty good. They won it all. We had that tough loss over at Penn State. And did we lose to anyone else?
That was it.
That was it. And but by the end, we were pretty good. And the '05 game at Michigan, I think they were ranked really high. I think they were ranked higher than we were, maybe. If I'm
I think we were higher than them, but we almost lost that one. We didn't
I
play
know.
very well until the end.
It was a great game against a very good team.
Yeah,
And
I think they ended up having 4 losses, and we only had 2.
Okay.
So I think we were ahead of them. But yeah, they went to the Alamo Bowl and lost to Nebraska, because I remember watching that in Arizona when we were out there for the game.
Okay. But that was a big victory up there, being down by 9 points with 6 or 7 minutes to go, and so we were pretty good by that time. Notre Dame was very good. All the hype seemed to be about Notre Dame, and I had a lot of confidence in how good our team had become. I knew that it would be a game where it would be widely watched. People were curious to see it. We hadn't played them since like 1936 or something crazy. And so, it was a long way in the waiting. And, offensively, we had 617 yards. I mean, that's crazy, but I mean, we just went off on them. If we hadn't have had 3 turnovers, we would have probably scored 50 some. But unfortunately, we turned it over 3 times. And but one interesting side note on that one, I remember talking to Santonio before the game, and he was going to go out early, and I said, well, that's fine, but let's make sure we win the game, because the last thing you want to do is not win a game and then go tell the people at the press conference you're going to the NFL, and they're already mad at us that we lost the game, and then they'll be double mad. And so he not only waited till after the game, but he also, during the game, I don't know, he had like a 70-yard touchdown. And I mean, he just had a crazy day. And Teddy had a crazy day. And Pittman had a crazy day. And defensively, Hawkeye and those guys had a bunch of sacks on Quinn. So, no, that was a fun one, because there just seemed to be an air there that people thought that the Notre Dame program was every bit as good or better than ours. And I was convinced it was not. And but we had to prove it. And so now, going into this weekend, I think everyone thinks that the Ohio State program is ahead, which I perhaps think the same. We've got to prove it. We've got to go out and we've got to have everyone say, "See, we told you. This is a top team." And but that's the fun of it. And there's times when you prove what you think, and there's other times where you fall short of proving what you think, and you go back and change your thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating Saturday. Well, it is 3:32, and I told you I'd be cognizant of your time. So you're the best, my man. I appreciate you, Coach. David Penterick and Jerry Kokian say hi. I'm going to see them this weekend. So
awesome.
Looking forward to seeing those guys.
We'll have a fun weekend. It's going to be so much fun to see all those guys from coast to coast. I mean, we got people coming from all over the country to get back together. And to think it was 20 years. I'm not old enough for that to be 20 years ago. But anyway, it was.
Yeah, time really goes really, really fast, Coach. Well, again, you're the best, my man. I appreciate you. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We just had a wonderful interview with Coach Tressel. He is the best in the business, one of the greatest human beings on earth. I hope you guys enjoyed that content. In the comments, please write, what was your favorite Jim Tressel memory from his tenure? He was an outstanding member of the Ohio State coaching tree. He is a father-like figure to me. He's a great mentor to me. If you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate your support. This was a great episode. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We will have a few more episodes leading into the game. We'll have some pregame coverage, and we look forward to seeing you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. Thank you. Have a great day.